Okay, so today we're going to be doing another sketchbook practice demo. And this one is going to deal with different types of bottles in relation to each other. So last time we did just a singular bottle, and we can review that today. But we really want to figure out, when things are laid out before us, where we should place them in relationship to other objects. So that's what we'll be dealing with today. So for this, you're going to label it proportions, objects in relation. So how objects relate to each other in space. And to start out with, we're going to do a review essentially. And we're going to start with just one of the bottles. The easiest thing to start out with for me personally is to pick one that is closest to you, because that one tends not to be blocked. It tends to be like the largest object that you have. So it's just good to start with that. And so just like before, we're going to start with our base, which is always going to be that ellipse shape for the cylindrical objects. So towards the bottom and towards the right side of your page, you're going to add that ellipse in there. Of course, we want to figure out how tall it should be. This guy is about 1, 2, 3, almost 4 times as tall as it is wide. So same goes for here. 1, 2, 3, and then it's about 4 times as tall as it is wide. So once you have that, again, we'll mark in our top, block in our sides, and then we'll add that line in the center for symmetry. So it's the exact same process as in the first demo where we did just a singular bottle. Remember that if you have a hard time figuring out where your center line is, you can add that X in your initial box, and you'll see where the center is. I'll adjust that a little bit. After you're done with this, we're going to start with the cap of our bottle. We can see inside of it, so we see this very skinny ellipse shape. It'll go downwards, and then we actually have this strange oval shape going on here for the top of our bottle. So I'll add that in already. I have my cap now. I'm going to figure out where things transition. So right here, I'm going to say things start to cone out and point inwards. And that's actually just about halfway through this bottle. So right at about halfway, that's one of our transition points. And I'll say it doesn't straighten up till about there. So in between that oval that we made towards our cap and that third line is going to be our other transition point. Next, I don't really see a circle in here when I'm dealing with the defining shapes. In here, just think of this as a cylinder the whole time. So I can add in, just another ellipse shape to remind me that this is a cylinder, but I'm not really dealing with round edges here. I just have a pretty strong triangle that slopes very steeply, and then it just goes straight down. So just connect that with some straight lines. And even though my bottle isn't necessarily super round, I still want to smooth out those edges that are a little bit too sharp. So once you have your bottle shape, you can go in and you can curve out your final lines, add in any details you want. So on this lip, I see a couple of nice extra lines in there that I'll add. And then I'll make sure that even though my edges aren't super round, they're still going into one another smoothly. Get that kind of edge that's right along here. Go down, make sure I round out the corners just a little bit before ending with the bottom of that initial ellipse that we made. So just a quick review on how to approach a singular bottle. I see that there's some kind of lettering detail in here. And for fun, I'm going to very quickly put those in. So it gives it a little bit more personality that way. If I made any of my lines too thick like I did here, you can always just clean it up. And there you have it, our first bottle. So just a review of the first thing that we did. Next, we're going to skip down and we're going to deal with our next closest bottle, which is that pink one over there. And what we're going to do is use the initial bottle that we made, so that blue one, to tell us where the pink one is. So first, let's figure out where the base is. So if I make a line from the base through the blue bottle, you can see that it kind of happens right under that first transition point. So in my drawing, I'm going to go right under my transition point, and I'm going to add a line there. That's where I know the base of this pink bottle is. Next, the top of it is just a little bit higher than the initial bottle, so I'm going to go a little bit higher than my initial bottle, and that's where the top is. It's pretty straightforward. Afterwards, I want to figure out this distance. So how far is this bottle, the pink one, from the blue one? I'm going to say this distance right here looks pretty similar to my cap, actually. So I'm going to take that same cap distance, it's about this much, and that's where I'm going to mark in that side. And the last thing is I'm going to figure out where the other side of this is. So what's going to help me with that is if I actually just put in my initial ellipse for the base, you can see that it's smaller than our initial bottle was. So I'm going to find a shape that's a little bit smaller than that and make an ellipse that size. So right over here, and that's roughly how wide my bottle should be. So notice how important the first bottle is in determining where the second one is. So you use this bottle, this guy right here, to help you with that one. Now you can treat it like normal, essentially. So I boxed it in, have a base, can add my center line, then I can deal with the cap. So this kind of ridged cap that I see here. And now this transition point where it starts to kind of round out. Again, this happens right under that third transition point that I had there. So between the second and third, in the middle of that kind of triangular shape that I made here. Or middle of those two transition points roughly. So I'm going to say that's where one of those is. And then it straightens out at the same place that my other bottle did, roughly. So around there, I'm going to make my other transition point. This one is a little curvier, so I can add in my circle to help me round it out. So that's right in there. Then have that cone shape. And then our bottle kind of straightens out again right after. So down there. And we can definitely adjust that once we get to the next stage, which is clean up. So cleaning up, adding in any details that I want to add. And while I'm doing this, I'm definitely going to be rounding out the edges of my bottle. So double checking that they're symmetrical. Rounding out those corners, and then getting the bottom of my ellipse. And so that's how you get your second bottle. The next one we're going to do together, so pardon me, I'm just going to lighten out these lines so they're a little bit easier to see when we're dealing with our next bottle. So we're going to do the purple one together now. So again, we're using these two different bottles, the first ones that we drew, to tell us where this purple bottle is going to be. So we can start by figuring out where the base of it is. See, the base of it basically happens where my pink bottle starts to get round. So about there is where the base is. Now, we're going to deal with the sides of it. So when an object is further back, you see that it gets blocked out. So some of this bottle got a little bit blocked. But what's nice is it gives me an exact point of where it starts. So I'm going to find that point maybe halfway through this angle. I'm going to say that's where this bottle starts. So I actually have a really good indicator of where the side of this bottle is. And you can see a little bit of our box is going to get blocked off, just like a little bit of the purple bottle is blocked off. The other side of my purple bottle, I can see just a little bit past my initial blue bottle, so I'm going to draw that in there as well. So straight line right there. And that tells me where the two sides are. I have the width of my bottle. At this point, you can actually kind of just treat it like normal. So I see how wide it should be. Then I'm going to compare that to its height. So this one might even be a little bit more than 4 times, or about 4 times as tall. So about 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little over, so I just made it in my drawing. So now I have the top, I have the sides all boxed in, and I can add my line of symmetry, or my center line. I'm going to add that cap right up there, it's the thing that pushed it a little higher than just the initial 4 times as high. And then I can deal with the transition point. So right over here, I think it starts to get rounder, and that's about halfway. So right at the top of this bottle cap, nice and easy. And it starts to straighten up right between the 3rd and the 4th lines. So there again. See my circle for those round edges. See this very steep triangle goes high up, and then I'll add in my connecting lines. Finally, I can add in, just gonna get real close up there. I'm gonna add in these finalized lines and make sure I add some curves. There's a little bit of a detail in here that's hard to see, but there's a nice kind of curve to this bottle. So I can add that detail while I'm sketching. Personally, I'm just going to add it right now. Get in that corner. And I'm not going to draw anything over here because it's blocked by my pink bottle. So I don't need to add anything there. Just show that it's behind it by not drawing anything because I can't see it. And there you go. So if I were to get rid of all of my sketch lines, you'd see this pretty clean drawing. I'm going to adjust that a little bit. And what I like to do now is I like to add in this table line, or this kind of horizon line almost. And that just grounds it so it doesn't look like 3 random floating bottles. Notice if you want to get the exact same line, that's okay, but it's kind of towards the top of this blue bottle. So right about here. As long as it's higher than the last bottle that you have, it's fine. You can put that line anywhere above here. So I like to add that in. And since that just kind of looks like a line, what you can do is you can take your pencil and you can shade a little bit so that the table looks different than the stuff that's behind it. And it'll look like two kind of more distinct areas. So there you go. It's pretty nice, just contour drawing plus a very simple background to just give us a little bit more information about this. Gonna add in a couple more details here. And so there's a couple of things that I want you to note down about our bottles. So whenever you have these objects, there's a couple of things that will help you kind of figure out what to do. The first one is pick a close object, because closer objects are going to appear lower and larger. So you can notice that with our very bottom bottle. It looks like it's the closest to us because it's lower on the page and it is larger than the other bottles. And because they're closer, they can block other objects. So notice when we have our pink bottle over here, it blocks the one that's further than it. So then with farther objects, the opposite is true. So farther objects look like they're going higher up on the page, and they tend to be smaller. Because they're further away, they can be blocked behind other objects. So our purple bottle gets blocked a little bit. Part of it is obscured because it's behind another object. So when you're approaching a still life, try to find where these objects are lying in relation to each other. What's the lowest to you? That's the closest object to you. And the higher it gets up, probably is farther to you as well. At least when they're all on the same plane. And so that was our lesson on objects on relation and dealing with getting those accurate proportions. What I'd like you to do now is to practice. So in your own sketchbook, you are going to practice a total of 6 bottles. And you can break that down into different groups. So you can do 2 groups of 3. You can do 3 groups of 2. Or you can split it into a group of 2 and a group of 4. Whatever works for you best.